Welcome back. Time for us to go behind the headlines, and I wanted to comment on that last story we covered on the free joint giveaway in Boulder. And this follows up on a free joint giveaway they did in Denver as well, and the idea was to fight against Proposition AA. Now, let me give you the details on this Proposition AA. It's a statewide ballot question. Again, this is from the Boulder Daily Camera. It's a statewide ballot question that will ask voters in November to approve a 15% excise tax and an initial 10% sales tax that could be raised up to 15%. That would be in addition to the existing sales taxes. Researchers believe the state could see as much as $130 million of tax revenues annually from retail sales. The first $40 million collected will go to school construction. The rest will be split between local governments and the state general fund for enforcement and regulation. Okay, so this is kind of a situation that's unique to Colorado. Maybe some other states have regulations like this, but in Colorado, if you go and put an initiative on the ballot, you can't put the taxes in that initiative. Taxes have to be voted on as a separate thing in Colorado. They got some amendment called Tabor that's a taxpayers' rights thing. So during the whole Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol campaign, the Amendment 64 in Colorado, we had people that were saying we need to tax and regulate marijuana. We need to tax and regulate marijuana. Let me give you a quote here. This is from a piece that was written before the election. If marijuana were legalized and taxed, violent drug cartels would lose their principal source of their income. Marijuana ought to be treated like a more dangerous substance, alcohol, available at the corner liquor store and taxed and regulated. So proponents of Amendment 64, proponents of marijuana legalization, went to the 7 out of 8 voters who don't smoke pot at all and said, look, we should tax this product. It should be taxed, with the implicit assumption there being that the taxation helps the society rather than benefiting a violent drug cartel. Now, who was the author of that quote? Why, none other than Robert Corey. Writing in Huffington Post in a piece called Marijuana Must Be Legalized back in 2012, fighting for Amendment 64 to get passed, kept saying legalized and tax and regulate. Now Robert Corey is the guy behind these AA protests, handing out free joints in Boulder and free joints in Denver, saying fight these taxes, don't vote for these taxes. Now, to give him his due, he's saying that if we're going to say regulate marijuana like alcohol, it should be like alcohol, not greater than alcohol. And I think that's a fair point. I think that my personal definition of legalization and the rights I'm fighting for are that I should be treated no differently than a beer drinker, right? If a beer drinker can brew his own beer at home, I should be able to grow my own plants at home. If a beer drinker can buy as much beer as he wants, I should be able to buy as much weed as I want, etc., right? But I think that might be a nuance that plays well within our community, that we understand that, yeah, we support taxation in general, but not over taxation. But my fear is amongst the mainstream, this nuance will be lost. And they will just see, wait a minute, weren't you the guys that were fighting for marijuana to be legal and saying if we taxed it, we could help schools? And now you're fighting against the taxes that would help schools? Now, when this came through in the Denver story, I kind of, played the news on it, reported the news on it and just kind of let it go because it's kind of, a libertarian issue. And I don't want to take this show into being libertarian or liberal or conservative because I think marijuana is a bigger issue than that. But I think Corey's reaction here is a form of knee-jerk libertarianism. Ooh, taxes, bad. Must fight taxes. And in the context of what's going on in Boulder, I worry also about the optics of this. For Corey to be saying Boulder has been victimized by floods, we want to bring some flood relief to folks. And the Boulder Daily Camera writing it about joints for stressed out recreational users who may have lost their stashes in the flooding. I can imagine a lot of people whose homes have been devastated by the floods in Boulder and whose kids' schools might have been flooded and ruined in Boulder, thinking, wait a minute, you think giving away free joints is going to help Boulder more than raising $130 million in taxes, some of which will be earmarked to fix and build schools like the ones that would be damaged in Boulder, and the rest would be distributed to local governments, some of which might go to Boulder and help them to rebuild after a flood. That seems to me a little bit shaky reasoning. So I worry again how this is going to look. I'm not unsympathetic to the idea that perhaps these AA taxes might be taxing marijuana too much. But when the Colorado State University studied this, they found out that even as the result of these taxes, marijuana might cost $185 an ounce. And I know most of the people listening to my voice throughout the United States and the world would love a $185 ounce. Even the people in Washington state who are looking at a 25 taxation scheme, plus an additional 8 or 9% in local taxes, and looking at the potential of $17 a gram weed, although I don't believe it's ever going to get that high, would love $185 an ounce. So we shouldn't look as if we're so in opposition to the taxes we promised to these voters. It's a tough row to hoe, I understand. Don't want to overtax us. We don't want to create taxes so high that people return back to the black market that we promised we'd get rid of. But this is a sensitive topic. We should think more about this. We got Bacon Dan on the line. We will be back with him in our Roots Monday tune right after this. Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
If he said he swam to